Obviously, you've had a very tough, probably about 12 hours, 24 hours over there. Tell us first, in the simplest language so people can understand watching home, what happened? Why did we see this event before 2 p.m. yesterday?
I mean, the simplest way to describe it is if you think about the activity in the marketplace that we saw yesterday, leading to almost unprecedented levels of order entry coming into our system. By orders, I mean buy orders and sell orders and cancel. So more than just the trades themselves. We saw order levels of 190 million, where an average day might have been 90 million. And that led to some challenges in the system that we are still working through in terms of diagnosing what they mean for the long term, but went straight to the fix last night so we could make sure we were steady, reliable, and up to open the market this morning, and you can have confidence in what we're doing today.
What does that fix look like? I mean, I imagine it's highly technical, but we had a huge amount of volume. Obviously, the system couldn't handle it. It couldn't handle the weight of the trade. So what do you do to sort of make sure that you could open as you did successfully, but that we make it through today as well, because the volumes are pretty intense today?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I mean, the challenge in the system is what's called the messaging layer, in terms of where messages come back and forth. And this is something that we test, and we test regularly. And we tested for levels beyond what we saw yesterday. So there's still a diagnostics that has to get done in terms of why these particular groups of activities and the way that they came in tripped it that way yesterday. But what we did overnight is ensure we understood the root cause, triage, make sure we could replicate what happened, and then, quite frankly, put a fix in place and add more capacity, so we have more capacity today and more monitoring capabilities so that we can be on top of whatever comes from an order flow standpoint.
Really, we're talking about stress testing the system to make sure it can take heavy loads. I mean, it happens across all kinds of industries.
Absolutely.
How often do you do that kind of stress testing, and should you really amplify the amount of a hit an exchange can take? I don't think we're going to be past this kind of volatility anytime soon.
No, and in fact, stress testing is something that we do all the time. The trading systems we run are critically important pieces of infrastructure for the marketplace, so we are constantly testing them, retesting them, investing in new components, investing in new hardware, updating the software, and that's part of our continuous operations, and we'll continue to do that. And what we'll find from this incident as we continue to go through the discovery is it'll help us identify ways we can make this operate better. We strive for the best uptime in the marketplace, but there's always ways we can do it better, and that's what we hope to get out of the analysis.
What about the fallout from this event in terms of reputational risk? I mean, at a time when the markets were under heavy selling pressure, only intensified south of the border, people came to you and to your exchange and could not make their trades. Obviously, there must be some repairing to be done in those relationships.
And it starts with regret. I mean, we're actually quite sorry that we made that challenging for our clients to execute yesterday, because that's our number one objective. And so we start today with rebuilding trust and credibility, and we'll do that in the way we operate the market every single day. But that starts right now. Okay,
so these would be the people, obviously, that would be almost a domestic kind of thing, client and customer. I think there's questions, too, about Canada's international reputation. Do you fear that we have a bit of a black eye on this? Because as the rest of the world was selling off and their exchanges were handling the volume, we were not handling the volume.
I think in the abundance of time, people will see that we actually have a very good track record for market operations, and one incident like this isn't going to be leading to a long-term reputational challenge for Canada.
You have competitors out there. Obviously, no one has the scale that you have. But do you fear that this gave them a little more wind under their sails?
Not necessarily. What we do feel is that's the value of having a multi-market environment that we have in Canada, that you're not reliant on one single marketplace. And when we were able to determine yesterday afternoon that we couldn't reopen with reliability, you give the opportunity to let the street know so they can execute their orders somewhere else and get the fills or closings that they needed. And that's actually the benefit of a Canadian marketplace like this that has multiple places where you can trade.
Let's talk a little bit about this environment that we're in right now beyond the outage that we suffered yesterday afternoon. This kind of volume, this kind of volatility, this kind of activity, what does it mean to the bottom line business at TMX?
Well, from a bottom line standpoint in the business of TMX, this type of activity drives different components of the franchise. So we're going to continue to see very strong and very heavy trading activity. We're going to see heavy derivatives activity. But on the flip side, we're likely to see more of a continued softness in capital raising. We saw that all the way through 2019. Very difficult environment for companies to raise money. And this kind of volatility in the market, we should expect that to continue.
I started thinking about that when I was taking a look through the Canadian bank earnings. That common theme this week have been the strength in the capital markets division. But of course, that strength, there's two ways to look at strength. You're doing a lot of business because a lot of activity is happening in the markets, but the activity on the market is positive. And that's where I try to think about the line about where is the line. You have a huge amount of activity here, obviously, but it is negative activity. So in the end, I think you alluded there to the fact that, yeah, you don't have people coming to market. This is a huge part of your business too, right? You don't feel great about the markets right now.
Well, I mean, our market and our business itself is diverse. It's balanced in terms of the ways that we serve clients in different ways, and different parts move with different parts of the marketplace. So from a business standpoint, we're in a strong position. Our focus right now is really how do we make sure that we're there, up, running, reliable to support the market activity that's there. And that's the absolute focus of what we're doing.
I have to imagine it's all hands on deck today. Do you have opportunities to further stress test the system after we make it to the close today, everything goes fine? You spend the weekend just making sure that that thing is bulletproof heading into Monday, because who knows what Monday is going to bring.
That is exactly what our team is going to keep doing. And as you can imagine, they were doing that all night last night, and we'll be doing it through the weekend, and we'll be doing it as we go through the week next week as well.
Now, apart from this, and apart from the crazy action we're seeing on the markets, the overhang of the virus, we simply don't know where things are headed there. What are the greatest challenges for the exchange heading into the next year? If we take the coronavirus out of the equation, which a lot of us would love to do, and we just don't have any control of that, what do you really need to grapple with at TMX Group?
For us, it's really about execution. And candidly, when the board asked me to step in the interim period, it was all about continuing to make sure that we execute on our strategic plan, ensure that we've got strong markets, that we serve the clients well, and that we grow in the areas that the exchange is trying to grow in terms of building out globally and bringing more capital back into Canada. That doesn't change with these macro events that we're talking about. We're looking at what are the long-term trends, how do we serve this market, bring capital into the Canadian marketplace, irregardless of what might happen in terms of coronavirus or other things that could impact things in the short term.
Bringing capital into the Canadian market obviously are we a bit uneven in terms of investment in this country? We know that Alberta, we know that the oil patch is ailing. We've seen even this week, tech coming saying we're not going to bring that project in. But are we finding sources of capital in other areas? Is there interest globally in other parts of our economy?
We are. In fact, when we look at the markets we have today and how much of the order flow or trading comes in from other regions, it's about 40%. Other markets are more developed than that. They may be as high as 60. So we are out talking to those jurisdictions that aren't as active in the Canadian marketplace, things like some in the Asian time zone, where you've got super funds, investment funds, that would be interested in Canada, but we have to tell them the story, and we've got to give them trading tools and capabilities so they can trade Canada. It can't just be about the story. We actually have to help them get to the market.
Is there any interest internationally beyond real estate in this country? I think of, what's happened to our mining sector, what's happened to our forestry sector, what's happened to our energy sector, and then people keep saying, well, don't worry, we have housing. It seems like the one pillar. Is anyone interested in anything other than our real estate?
But keep in mind, we also have a very broad-based equity market. In terms of comparison to other countries, many more sectors, strong industrial sector, strong financial sector that other countries are going to be interested in investing in. And we also have interest rate and fixed income products that are going to be useful to other countries as they hedge that exposure or look for safe havens. And Canada is a safe haven in a time of unrest like this.
Now, Saudi Aramco has been a huge story. Now they're talking about wanting to, get a little international listing exposure going. Would you want a piece of that? I can't imagine you would not want a piece of that business. How would you get a piece of that business?
The way we would get a piece would be the way we get anything else. We don't have any active dialogue there right now, but it's certainly in our international marketing efforts. We identify what are those geographies, what are those businesses that we could serve well from our marketplace, which can be energy sector, but they also can be tech companies as well. That's actually the biggest growth area for us, is international tech. So we market to companies like that on the basis of what kind of execution they can get to Canada, the network of banks and dealers and lawyers that can help them get success, the ability to access North American capital from a regulatorily friendly haven like Canada.
Now, we had, obviously, this challenge to your operations to a technical glitch, but I think a lot of corporate Canada right now is asking itself, what's our coronavirus plan? If people start getting sick in this country, if people are told to work from home, how does TMX Group handle perhaps a sizable amount of your workforce simply just falling ill?
Yeah, and that's our number one thought and concern around coronavirus, is how do we make sure the health and safety of our people is well tended. But we have a pretty distributed workforce already. We operate from multiple sites. We've tech-enabled it so people can work from remote locations. So we believe they got the ability that our key staff can work from wherever they need to in an outbreak like this.
Now you're in an interim role as CEO. How is the search going, and would you want the job full time?
That's a great question. It's a tough question. My understanding, because as you know, this is a board process, it's not a management-led process, and it's a process that the board had underway even prior to Lou's retirement early this year. So that process is well underway, is my understanding, both looking at internal and external candidates. For me right now, the focus is on execution. It's not focused on next role, it's a focus on executing the strategy and making sure we're delivering for clients through the interim period.